everybody. This is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University, and we're back. I'm an author, psychologist, and speaker. Every week we talk about how to love ourselves, others, and a higher nature, how to improve our finances, relationships, careers, physical and emotional health. And today we have a very wonderful guest today, a young married couple who have a fascinating story to tell us through their journey through the foster care system. We have Justin Black and Alexis Black. They are keynote speakers, founders of several organizations, scholarship expert, and the Rose Empowerment Foundation. The recipient of several national awards for their work, and they're co-authors of a great new book called Redefining Normal: How Two Foster Kids Beat the Odds and Discovered Healing, Happiness, and Love, available November 1st. Welcome to the show, Justin and Alexis.
Thank you for having us on here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys got an incredible and amazing story. I read actually, I only have 2 chapters of it, and I was kind of fascinated by it, just by the 2 chapters.
Oh, wow.
And I guess the more's coming. And you guys got an incredible story. So I want to start with you, Alexis. Going to your background, you suffered a lot of trauma and abuse in your past. And apparently at age 6, you were placed in foster, actually with your dad, your biological dad, after your mom died. And you thought it was an accident, but later you discovered it was suicide later in your teen years.
Yeah.
And then he unfortunately abused you emotionally, physically, and sexually for many years until around 14 years of age or so.
Yeah, 13.
You testified against him, and he went to jail or prison. And then you live with your aunt, and she's kicked you out eventually for some reason. And then you found a loving foster family home, and they adopted you at age 26. Is that kind of a nutshell kind of thing? Okay.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. And then you got accepted to a scholarship to Western Michigan University as well, and you graduated.
Yes,
with,
I have 2 degrees.
2 degrees. What are your degrees in?
One's a BBA in entrepreneurship, and the other one is a BA in global studies. Mine is in nonprofit leadership and political science. And I actually also studied abroad 8 times.
That's incredible. Do hablo español? Do you speak any languages at all? Or
Spanish a little bit.
Poquito?
I went to Ecuador, but that's about it.
Okay, no problem. Now this is a horrifying but very interesting story. So your dad abused you for many years, and also he said other people sexually abused you, neighbors, friends, and others.
Yes.
And one thing is, he said he kicked you with a steel toe at one time, boot or something.
Yes.
As part of the abuse. Now, I assume you hated him, and at one point you said you wanted to kill him. You had a knife or something in the back of his head or something.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I was thinking about it.
Okay. So why didn't you kill him, for example?
I guess I saw it as I was thinking of the consequences and what would happen, and just because I got him out of my life, what would my consequences be, and what would happen to me? And I don't know, there was just always something in me that I needed to do better and do more, and I felt like with him out of my life, I could do that, but there had to be another way.
Definitely. And was he alive? Where is he now?
Yeah, so he was in prison, and then he got released last year while I was studying abroad, and now he's back in Flint, Michigan.
How do you feel about that? I mean, are you able to forgive? I mean, how do you feel toward him now?
I mean, I don't necessarily have as much animosity or negative feelings anymore, because I had to learn to forgive him and also ultimately to forgive myself.
Yes.
And I think it was something I had to do for myself, not necessarily something for him.
Yes.
And I honestly forget that he's released because he's not on my mind regularly. And so when I go to Flint to visit other family members, typically I just go in and leave out, but I don't even think about that. Oh, he's there. What happens if I bump into him? And my biological brother is in Flint, and he's like, oh, I think I just saw your bio dad yesterday. Wow. And there's things like that that's triggering and jarring. Like, he's still alive. He's still roaming.
Right.
And those things kind of are jarring, because I'd rather just not think about it.
Definitely. I can see that. I mean, I wrote a book called The 3 Secrets of Happiness, and one of the secrets actually is forgiveness. Not necessarily for that person that made the horrible things to you, but for your own, nature to kind of move on in your future. Also to forgive yourself, because many times we're self-critical. And you may have incorporated a lot of that self-criticism that, or abuse that he gave toward you internally. And now you said your aunt kicked you out. What happened there? Why did they kick you out?
So I was in an abusive relationship with my ex for about 8 years, and they obviously weren't accepting of the relationship, and they found out that I started talking to him again. And so ultimately it was because of that. But for years, I have been begging my foster care workers to get me out of the house because they knew that I wasn't happy there. And I made it very apparent that I wasn't happy there and I didn't want to be there. And so that was just kind of the cherry on top of, you got to go. And it was honestly the best thing that ever happened to me, because then I met my foster, now adopted parents.
I see.
But in the moment, I felt like my world was falling apart.
Right, exactly. You said that you were even suicidal and you were hospitalized in a mental psychiatric facility.
Yes.
How was that experience?
It was definitely I don't know how to explain that experience honestly, because I'm in this psychiatric facility for 3 days, and it was one of the hardest. It was some of the hardest 3 days of my life, where everybody around me is like going to the bathroom on themselves, pulling their hair out, and lining up to take medicine. And you get points to take a shower or to make your bed, and it just. I was really at the point where I was like, I would say and do anything to get out of here, just because that was a traumatizing experience in itself.
That's terrible. So it's 5150 hold for 72 hours. Is that what they kept you in for?
Yeah, I think it was a 74-hour hold on suicide watch.
Okay. And since then, you've been no more suicide, no more of that stuff, or?
No. I mean, throughout high school, there were several attempts, but after high school, not necessarily an attempt, but I had thoughts, but not any attempts. No.
Okay. They have a beautiful song you kind of quote in the book, Kirk Franklin, "Imagine Me."
Yes.
And it sounds like a gospel singer, I believe. Kirk Franklin is. Okay. And it says something like, "Imagine me letting go of all the ones who hurt me," and kind of like almost forgetting, or forgiving, or moving forward. Now, if you have advice to people that have been abused or traumatized, I work a lot with trauma victims in psychology. What's advice to them to let go of that past?
I think it's really going to depend on per person of what they've gone through and how they're handling the situation. But ultimately, I would say for like one of the greatest things that I've done is group therapy, just because it can be so difficult to be in one-on-one therapy with somebody and try to open yourself up and talk to them. But when you're in group therapy, that was the first time that I ever felt that I wasn't alone and that there were other people that have gone through similar things. It was, on one hand, it was extremely sad because there were other individuals that have gone through what I've gone through, and you wouldn't wish that on anybody. But at the same time, you're just thankful that you've met somebody that has, when you feel so alone.
Yes,
so that is definitely one thing that I recommend is a group therapy setting.
Okay. You also mentioned you have a spiritual faith. Is there a particular path that you follow spiritually?
We're both Christians.
Christian. Yes. Okay. So has that helped you at all, the faith part of things, to kind of help move forward to a better life?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do weave that in and out of the book. As you can see through each chapter, we mention what does statistics say, as in what does the world tell us will be, and then what does God say. And so we're rooted in the Word of God to get us through what we've gone through. And so our spiritual faith has definitely grown us. And then from dating atheists and other individuals, and then to dating and eventually marrying Justin, who is a very strong Christian and has pushed me towards my Christianity and believing in my faith in God. And so that has definitely worked towards our healing individually and together.
Now, because of the horrific sexual abuse you went through, was it difficult to be sexually intimate with your husband, or to trust again in this way?
Yes, and we do talk about that a little bit in the book. I was probably going to write another book about that, just if you've gone through sexual abuse and then how to handle an intimate relationship. But I honestly, it's, say, for example, for triggers, like it's not his job to know all of my triggers, but at the same time, if I'm aware of them, it's my job to translate that to him, so he's aware of it, and for him to respect that. And so there are certain things that are triggering to me, and that I've expressed that to him, and he's very conscious of it. And also, like, we believe very strongly in consent every time. And so making sure that we're, I guess, always on the same page in that regard. Because if it's unequal or I guess if it's unequal, then it or unfulfilling to one person, then it can be triggering in that way. So we just always want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Right. And when we say triggers, you mean what we call cues or associations in psychology, like things that remind you of the trauma. So people have like what are called flashbacks. They recall the previous abuse and things like that.
Exactly.
So you want to be able to be cognizant of that. Now, Justin, moving over to you now, you got a fascinating story. Now, you look like an intellectual dude with those glasses, kind of, I don't know, are you nerdy in any way? Or are you, how would you classify yourself?
Yeah, I guess so. I'll take that. There's no dumb nerd, so
you're a smart nerd.
I'll take the nerd label.
Okay. But you grew up very tough and rough, you said, in the poorest neighborhood in Detroit, Michigan. And then apparently you were with a drug-addicted mom and a drug-dealing dad, living in abandoned houses, no electricity, things like that, water, food. Roaches, you mentioned hundreds of roaches crawling everywhere. You talked about your dad being stabbed by your sister because he was trying to beat up your mom. Drug dealers were like friends of the family in some ways. They would give you money at times, and they were your role models in some ways in the neighborhood. People looked up to them because they had all the things people wanted. And then eventually, I think they caught up with you, Child Protective Services, at age 9. They took you out of that, and then you end up, I think, living with your aunt or something. And but you said that you were kind of happy at 8 years of age because you had no school, you had video games, and you kind of thought it was fun. And then you would even beat up little kids if they messed with you or something like that. So tell us, how was that fun in a certain way, even though you didn't know what was going on around you?
I think that's kind of like the purpose of the book. Really, is just to when we think about normal and what's normal from your perspective, what's normal from my perspective, growing up as children and in certain circumstances. Um, I put that in there specifically because those ideas and those circumstances for me, and not just for me, or those circumstances for Alexis at 9 years old or as a teenager, that was our normal. And for other people in different communities, different parts of the country, they may have a certain perspective on what's normal. And
Right.
I said that to say, when we get to a point where maybe I'm a teenager or I'm an adult, if you see me behave a certain way, if you were to see me react a certain way, it's easy for people to judge that reaction without
Right.
knowing my background and my history and what was my normal.
Hmm.
Because if you were me and you were coming from my perspective, that reaction to a certain situation would be the normal. So I wanted to highlight that that situation, that circumstance was my normal. And also throughout the book, as you see us grow, you will see that our normal began to change and we had to eventually redefine normal.
I like that. We're actually going to deal with that a little later because I like the whole psychological concept of normality. That's very fascinating. Now, did you say your sister became pregnant at 18? Your brother became a father at 14. And so you got a lot of stuff going on here. This is pretty amazing. Now, why didn't you become a drug dealer or a father? I mean, what kept you out of this? I mean, you could have gone pretty bad. I mean, maybe, gangs or I don't know what else is going on out there. Now, they had a study called Overcoming the Odds. They did a long-term study on 1/3 of at-risk youth, and a third of those were resilient. You know the term resilient, where you overcome
Mm-hmm.
adversity and bounce back. And they found that there were 3 factors that the resilient kids had. One of them is they had a pleasing personality. They were kind of fun, loving to get around. People liked them. They were sociable and they, got along well with people. So they had a nice temperament. Number 2, they had a talent or skill. Like some of them were good at sports or science or math or, maybe they're comedians or funny people. And then finally, they had a mentor. Not usually their parents even. It could have been a coach, a pastor, a grandparent or something. So what do you think saved you just in those early years where you could have gone really bad?
The same thing that saved me could have saved my siblings and will save my siblings. It's just a change of mind. It all comes down to making a decision on our lives. And at that time, I mean, I was on that path and I was on that road, and I could have ended up becoming one of those things, and easily could have. And the thing is, it's just it's family culture. And again, what is being passed down to you, those ideas were okay because there was becoming a father as a teenager,
Right.
or getting pregnant when you're young. Those ideas
Right.
and that culture was accepted.
Right.
And it gets to a point where it just, from a certain perspective, the perspective I had on the situation, it was not as acceptable to a certain extent. And it's just, you get to a point where you see certain parts of life and you're able to experience certain things where you make that decision where that's not what you want. And
were you a Christian at the time, or when did you think you became a Christian, more or less?
Well, I believed in God pretty much my whole life, but it's a difference between really believing in a religious God and
Right.
believing developing a true relationship with spirituality.
Right. Now you said your other siblings, are they okay? What's going on with those guys?
I think we're all just in general trying to figure out life, and
Okay. Are they still in the
of course
system, or are they, doing okay?
oh no, they're all way older than me, so they
Okay.
aged out of the system a long time ago.
Okay.
And
Good.
again, we're all just basically trying to figure out life now, and they've had some success, some downfall, and we're all just trying to go through the process of life and trying to get on top of things, I would say.
Yes.
And we still are all overcoming the trauma, because this is a lifelong process of
Yes.
overcoming that trauma and that
Right.
culture. So
Okay.
we're all just in the process of that in general.
Yes. Now you said when you were 16 or 17, you went to a group home and you met some mentors. You said black businessmen who were successful and that helped you kind of have a positive image. So how did that help you in that way when you started to see these mentors that were different from the usual drug dealer kind of people?
Yeah, so I think that just seeing more positive men who look like myself more Black pastors and Black businessmen, Black architects,
Right.
Black engineers who successful men who look like myself really inspired me, and they spoke life into my situation, into my story.
Okay.
You know, when I brought home bad grades, they had a higher expectation for me. When I didn't believe I can go to college, they told me, "We believe you can go to college. You have that talent and ability to go to college and be successful."
Okay.
So they spoke that into me, and they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. To where it got to a point where I worked hard for them, and I brought home good grades for them, and not even for myself. And it's just a community of people really speaking life into you and really contributing to you.
That's great. So, Alexis, you said that he's a very poetic guy. I just heard the phrase "speak life into the situation." That's very poetic. Is that right?
Yes, very much.
So he's got those gift of words. And also, you guys both earned a scholarship, right, to the university, I think for foster kids or something called CETA, I believe you said it was?
Yep, the CETA Scholarship.
CETA Scholarship. And then I think you said you've traveled in over 30 countries, Justin, including Rwanda. And I don't know if you know
I think we've been to about 30 countries together. I've been to about 25 individually, but we've been to about 30 together. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Now, Rwanda, I don't know if you know this, Justin, it was rated as the second most loving country in the world. They actually did a study, and they found that 92% of people there say they felt loved the previous day. Philippines is number one, believe it or not.
Wow.
What was number one?
The Philippines was number one.
Oh, wow.
And we're kind of in the middle. America's about 25 or 26, so that's pretty cool. Did you find loving people there when you went to Rwanda?
Rwanda is like my top 2 or top 3 favorite country in the world.
Yes, African country.
The friends I have there are just simply amazing. I talk to them pretty frequently, and I can't wait to go back once the pandemic calms down and everything. So yeah, Rwanda is one of the best places in the world.
Yes, loving. Now you have a great quote. Now both of you guys have kind of interesting quotes. Now you talk about Psalms, and you said, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want," which is a classic, phrase. What does that mean to you? As a former foster kid and in life now, in terms of the shepherd idea?
So the scripture says, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want." And so it's basically saying that as long as I have God, then I am fulfilled and I am whole. As a foster, you can feel so empty a lot of times when you don't have family or friends or your parents in your life, and you could be broke, you could be hungry. It's a lot of ups and downs through life. But the scripture talks about being fulfilled not by the worldly things like food or water or even your parents, but having your heavenly Father fulfill you in every single way of life. Yes. So as long as I have God, I can be without anything else, and I'll be content.
That's beautiful. Now let's get to your story. So I like the way you guys parallel it. In your book, you start with your story, Alexis, then you go to Justin, right? Back and forth. That's great. And then you guys meet at Western Michigan University, your scholarship. Now you are a freshman, Justin. You're 19 years old. Now you're a junior. You're about 22 years old. So you're the so-called older woman. And you meet each other, and you kind of fall for her. She's beautiful to you, I believe, Justin. You have good connection. And I think you go to her room or something, and then you kind of have a little bit of affection with her, and then you pull back a little bit. So what was going on in your mind? You want to be romantic with her, but you don't want to be too fast. What was your feeling, Justin?
Yeah, I think I talk about in the book how I was kind of split between being the ladies guy and trying to, at that time I'm a college freshman, trying to actually sleep with women and everything and be out there and trying to fit into a group of guys who are sleeping with a lot of women. And another half of me was trying to build a genuine friendship and connection. Yes. And we were doing that at the time, building a genuine friendship and connection. Yes. But being split between the two, it was hard not to try to be the lazy man to swoop in and try to
the ladies man. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, Alexis, was he a ladies man in your mind, or what were you thinking when you saw this guy?
Well, I thought he was a baby. He was just so little.
Are you little like size-wise or just age-wise?
Just, age-wise, and then also his face. He had a very much of a baby face. Okay. Like he looks a lot older now, but back then, like he looked so young, probably like 17 or 18.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then I just got out of an 8-year relationship a week before, and so I was like, no, I'm not trying to talk to anybody. I don't want. We can be friends, but that's it.
Right.
And
he was abusive. You told me, right? The ex-boyfriend was very abusive with you. Like he didn't feed your cats or something like that on a trip.
Yeah.
And
he was abusive to me, and then also to my pets. For a couple of years.
Okay. So you met her, you guys have a good chemistry and connection. However, Justin, you did flirt apparently with the student leader girl or something. And she found out about it. Okay.
I was right
and
there.
you went out with the football player. So tell us about that. Were you trying to get some payback, or what was going on, Alexis, there?
No, actually, the football player incident happened first, and
happened
I
first,
honestly
okay.
didn't even know Justin was right there.
Oh.
And I was sitting at a table with a bunch of people, and there was this football player, and I thought he was super cute. And this guy at my table called him over, and I was just mortified.
Oh.
And
Okay.
and then all of a sudden, I turn around and Justin's walking out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know he was right there.
Okay.
Well, I think it was a reaction because the flirting with the student leader. I think that did happen first. And that's how we told your story. It's kind of like I think from my perspective, that's how it happened. I think it was a reaction to talking to the student leader and everything.
Okay.
But I don't know.
The student leader happened on the last day of the program.
No, it happened a couple of times actually.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But
Alexis, did you hear from the grapevine that he was like flirting with other girls? Did you know that, or you didn't know that?
I mean, like I would see it like throughout the week, but he kept like coming up to me and like talking to me. And then the last day of the program, after we already made this great connection, he flirted in front of the entire group with the student leader, and I was just kind of shocked, like, why would he do that after we had a connection?
Yeah. You're turning red or something? Are you turning red, Alexis? I see a little. Is that?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Don't take her back to that moment.
Okay, I'm embarrassed you. Okay, all right. Well, you guys had a really good connection, though. But I know, Justin, you said you were torn between, I guess, sleeping with a woman, I guess being very romantic with her sexually, and also, your faith and trying to pull back. So how was that conflict, though? It seems like you felt guilty at one time, or you went a little too far or something with her. What was going on?
No, so I guess again, like I said, I was kind of split between the two, and even though we were having a good conversation and we were like watching the movie in her room, I still, it's still a part of me was still filled with lust and trying to pursue her sexually.
Right.
And it was, I thank God that it happened the way it did, where we didn't have any sexual activity, but because I feel like that would have thrown off our relationship a lot, and it would have kind of just disrupted everything. But it happened in the right way, where we built a true and genuine relationship and friendship before we did get involved sexually, and I'm happy in that moment that that nothing happened.
Right. How do you feel about that, Alexis? So what was your point of view? I mean, you've been betrayed before by men, but did you trust them initially, or what was your feeling about it?
I think because we, as you read in the book, like we had that huge connection, like sitting in the grass, where I just kind of told him what happened to me, and he just sort of accepted that. I never had that before.
Yes.
And so through that, I felt that I could trust him.
Right.
And then so when he did come to the room, I told him, you can sit in the chair. And after like we talked for a long time, then we went on to bed and we watched a movie. And when he did try to make a move, and I told him no, and he respected that. That definitely built my trust a lot, because other men wouldn't have stopped from past experience. So I just really appreciated and respected that from him.
Okay. And then when she revealed to you her past, you really accepted her. I think you said you're beautiful. And if you're still single by the time you graduate, I want to marry you. Now, was that sincere, or was that a line to get her attention?
It was joking at the time, like, because the thing is, like I said, I was a lot younger.
She's really turning purple. She's turning purple right now. So, your face
so this is a good color change right here.
Oh, okay.
Right now.
Okay.
So, I was joking at the time. It was a little hint of seriousness, but I was still joking at the time because, again, I was like 3 years younger, and I was actually, like I said, a freshman. She was a junior. So it was just saying, hey, if you graduate and you're still single when I graduate, then we'll get married.
Okay.
And then that was the deal, and it actually followed through. We
like that.
were
Yeah,
able to
that's
get
pretty
married.
rare. You follow through, right?
Yeah.
But you told me she was out of your league in the beginning, but I guess you gained confidence as time went on, huh?
Yeah.
Win her heart.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's great. You got a great love story. That's wonderful. And you got married, after college, or when did you guys get married?
Actually, we got married this August.
Good job. Congratulations.
August 8th, 2020. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, 20. Okay, very good. And then, so then the book is coming out. You've been writing the book, I think. And so let's go back to that. So the term normal, I mean, that's a very fascinating term. In psychology, we have the term abnormal, which means to deviate from the mean statistically. Like, for example, hoarders are a small percentage of society, and the behavior they do is considered abnormal. And then we have what's called extraordinary. For example, you're not normal, but you're beyond that. Let's say you have special abilities or talents. And then you have what I call the bad normal. I think you were saying when you get accustomed to things that are negative and they seem like they're normal. For example, drug abuse, domestic violence, all these things you guys went through. And then finally, we have the new normal, which I guess is, like you said, redefining what is normal to you. But some people think the virus is a new normal in some ways. You know, this thing about the masks and all the other stuff we're doing. So how do you guys look at that? I mean, what is normal? What is the old normal? What is the new normal to you? Either one can start.
As it relates to our life or just
your life
for the pandemic? Okay, so a new normal in our lives it is based on a lot of Christian principles and a lot of ideas just of respecting each other. Almost of it continues. It's a pattern of digging into our past and finding out more about our parents and who they are in order to change that culture. You know, like for my family, it's been 2 generations of domestic violence on my dad's side and 2 generations of drug abuse on my mom's side. So after finding that out, you want to be intentional about, okay, here's how I changed the normal and the culture of my family. So you continue to find more about your family and your past and the things that they've experienced, because those things can reoccur in your life, and you want to be intentional about those things and see how you can change it.
Definitely. Alexis, any comment on that? What is new normal for you, let's say, compared to your past?
For me, it's just a constant journey of unlearning so many toxic behaviors in my past, and then also being more aware of my daily life, my daily thoughts. How am I waking up? How am I going to bed? What is my purpose each day? And just making sure that I'm living intentionally versus before it was more in survival mode or passively. So I wanted to make sure that I'm living a life of intention and make sure that I'm choosing the life that I want to live versus it being chosen for me.
Right. Now, one thing is good about your memoir is it's kind of a novelistic elements. You know, like you get interested in the characters. Now, for example, your dad and mom, Justin, you said your mom, was she killed last year, you said?
No. So she passed away a week after our wedding, and a certain situation that occurred with a neighbor, and
so she was killed, not
she was killed.
That's very sad. And then your dad, is he around or?
Yeah, so I'm in constant communication with my dad, and we've been building more of a solid relationship after my mom's passing, because throughout my life, even as an adult, I mean, once I separated from her, I would say more as an adult, after I separated from my mom, we started to build more of a relationship of just talking on the phone, where she would call me once or twice a week.
Right.
And we would just talk pretty often and pretty common. And it was huge for her to show up to the wedding and just be there. And that was the last time I was able to see her at the wedding.
But is your dad, is he out of the drug dealing? Is he clean, or do you know what's going on with him? Or just still?
Yeah, he's living a better life now. He's doing a lot better.
That sounds good. Well, so it's pretty rare to find that. Sometimes it's hard to get out of that kind of stuff, the cycles. Now, the other thing you talked about is you're kind of both wounded, from the past. You talk about taking an individual journey of healing before you can join together as a couple. And that's a very important concept. I had a psychologist, a famous couple called the Hendricks. I don't know if you heard of Harville Hendricks. Getting the Love You Want. They were been on Oprah a lot. They have a very interesting theory. It's called imagotherapy. And imago means that you often unconsciously choose a love partner that has the positive and negative elements of the parent you had the most trouble with. And you spend a lot of the time trying to resolve that through your partner unconsciously. And that's their theory. And sometimes the couples help each other therapeutically, but sometimes you need outside help. So how did you guys do that? You coming from wounded backgrounds together. How did you resolve that? Or are you resolving it?
I think it goes just into that being intentional of healing individually before, probably when we first started dating. I think there was part of it where we were trying to seek the filling of voids and I guess love and healing through our partner, but we can only get that through ourselves.
Right.
And nobody else can do that for you. And so I think once we came to that agreement together of the importance of healing individually and also healing together, but the individually needs to happen first. And so that was the only way for us to really get through that.
Yeah. Like she said before, just being intentional about everything. So, we are aware of our past and our experiences, and a lot of people are they ignore their past and their family trauma and everything they went through. Yeah. And when you ignore it and you put it on the back burner like nothing ever happened, you kind of put that, because you can't tuck it in and it never shows. A lot of people try to hide it and act like it's not real. But every time you hide it, it's going to reveal itself in another area. So when you are in a relationship and, in a relationship, the two are like one and you're putting these things on one another, that's how it reveals itself. You
Yes.
put those traumatic experiences on your partner. And
Yes.
with us being aware of our past and our trauma and being so vulnerable and honest with each other of our experiences and making each other aware of our experiences, I am intentional about, okay, here is what I should do, here's what I shouldn't do. Here is how I support her, and here are the things that she needs to take to a counselor or to God or to someone else who can help her and serve her in her life. And this is what I can do for her. These are the things that I can't do for her. And the same way with me, like I tried to say to her, like, I don't need a counselor. I could just talk to you about my issues. But she says, no, you need someone who's specialized and equipped to help you grow mentally and in other areas of your life. So we are aware, and we go to marriage counseling, even though without like serious issues.
Yeah, I was going to say, because Justin, you said that you actually believe in therapy, and I come from a Latino background, and a lot of minorities, they don't want to do the therapy because they think you're soft or weak, or in Spanish we say loco en la cabeza, right? You're crazy. So what do you say to people that really need therapy to encourage them? Maybe young men or males, for example, or even women to go to therapy. What is your idea?
Yeah, so I encourage therapy for any and everybody, but more specifically for Black men and women, especially when you see the trauma that we've gone through in our situations in this country and internalizing a lot of racism that we go through. It's very important that Black people seek out counseling because, like I said, my experiences became normal. And for a lot of young Black men and women, those situations are becoming normal. And those ideas are becoming normal and acceptable for a lot of Black communities and becoming like the culture and the structure of the community.
You're talking like domestic violence, or you're talking about, things like that, aggression toward your spouse?
Yeah, like sometimes handling your situations with violence or poverty, internalizing poverty and drug abuse and so many other things. Like drug abuse is not just you deciding I want to use drugs. A lot of times it's insecurities and things that you've experienced that you're internalizing and you're turning to drugs to solve those issues. And I would advise people in Black communities and everybody in general to turn to a counselor.
Good point. Now, one thing is, I wrote a book called Love Types. It's a bestseller on personality types, Myers-Briggs, and relationships, compatibility. And I was listening to your tapes, and it sounds, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Alexis, you sound like you're more of an expressive person. Are you kind of external feeling person? Do you express what you need to say, pretty much?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember what my Myers-Briggs is.
Extroverted feeler or something like that? You might be? Okay. Justin, you sound like you're more the internal thinker type. You said you like to process things and think it over. And how do you guys work that out? Because that could be sometimes an issue when you're different in your personalities. If you don't
that's something we had to work out in the book, and it's like a whole chapter on it. Talk it out. And we talk about how our communication styles we had to figure those things out. And one thing the reason why I'm so reserved and I try not to speak exactly what I think in the moment, because, coming from a household where there was a lot of domestic violence, people said whatever came to their mind. There was a lot of verbal abuse,
like profanity and cursing and stuff like that.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that going on, and I wanted to just be more intentional and aware of the words I use and how my words make other people feel and what I do. Because in my family, with domestic violence being almost like in our family for years and decades, it's so easy to handle situations like that. But I wanted to be intentional and not make it a knee-jerk reaction, and think about my actions and what I do, what I say, and how I process things. And with Alexis, she'll talk to you more, about
more
her experiences and how she communicates.
Okay.
Yeah, I always grew up where you just, especially when you're in an argument, you just say the meanest thing that you could think of.
Okay, it comes out.
The further below the belt, the better.
Okay, there you go.
That was your way of winning.
Right. But of course, that's not very healthy, but that's unfortunately a pattern. Now, speaking of patterns, Alexis, one time you said you got some garbage bags because you ran out of luggage for some clothes or something, and then you blew your top, Justin, because it triggered some memories of the past, the garbage bag idea.
It was a trigger. Most foster care youth can relate to these type of stories where you're leaving a place and it may be like an emergency, or you just have to throw yourself in the trash bag, or you don't have luggage and you just have to throw it in a trash bag. But
Right.
even though this item of a trash bag is used for trash, it's not meant for clothes to go in there.
Yes.
But it symbolizes almost that we're just carrying around this black bag,
You're on the
and
run, pretty much, right?
this is like our life in this bag and all of our possessions,
Yes.
and we're just carrying it in a
Right.
trash bag, and it almost makes you feel like you are you are a part. This
You're
trash
trash.
bag is a part of your life.
That's
you know?
terrible. Yeah. Like you're trash and you're carrying trash, right? So, psychologically.
Yeah.
And apparently you guys were, I guess your dad told you to hide from Child Protective Services. You were on the run from them at some point. They were trying to.
Yeah, so we talk about that early on in the book where, my dad, even though he had his experiences in the community and with selling drugs, it's unfortunate because he was good with, I feel like he could build any and everything. He can work on cars, houses.
Yeah.
It was regular for me to see him
Right.
working on people's roof and building like a wall or working on plumbing and doing any electric in the house, any and everything that relates to a house.
Wow.
So when we were on the run from CPS and we moved to an abandoned house,
Right.
We lived there throughout the winter, and it was rough and it was pretty hard, no water or heat or anything. But our dad kept promising us that once the weather gets better, he'll fix the house up,
Right.
or even
he
before
never
the
did.
weather
He never
gets
did.
bad.
Right? Yes.
Yeah, he never did, and that kind of built the trust issues within our family for me specifically. So.
Well, it's great that you can forgive him. I mean, after all these years, and you're becoming friends. It looks like closer to him.
Yeah, because you can't keep that resentment. You can't keep that type of resentment. And again, like Alexis said before, that type of resentment only hurts you. And I want to understand more about my family because this trauma didn't start with them. It went before them. So the more you learn about your parents and their experiences, the more you learn about yourself.
Definitely. Now, Love University, we talk about definition of love for us is loving yourself, others, and a higher nature. It could be God, spirit, your higher belief. So I wanted, if you give me a couple lines for yourself, because I know you guys talk about redefining love. Alexis, what is love to you? Give me a couple phrases.
Yeah. So for myself, my understanding of love was always it was more abusive and always that love hurts. And so for myself, I just always expected that for myself, that the way that I'm going to handle intimate relationships or whatever relationships, it's always that person is taking something from me, and it's always one-sided. So when Justin and I started dating, we had to redefine that and see that the definition that love actually can heal, and it feels good, and it's healthy.
Good, I like that. Okay, heals, feels good, healthy. Justin, give me your little definition of love.
So my definition of love comes from scripture and the Bible. A lot of times we try to make up definitions of love and figure out what does it truly mean. Right. But the Bible lays it out for us plainly and kindly, pretty clear. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love endures all. Love is it's not envious. Right. It keeps no record of wrong. Yes. It sees the best in people. And I try to and be patient. So in those aspects, I try to love myself and being patient with myself, kind with myself. Yes. Because sometimes I can be pretty hard, pretty tough, and unforgiving for myself. So it starts with loving myself and being kind and seeing the best in what I can do and seeing the best in what God has made me into. Yes. And then I'm able to reflect that love on my partner and everyone else.
Very beautiful. And of course, I think it also said, love your neighbor as yourself and love God with all your heart. So you kind of like connecting all levels. And I know you guys are really, yes. I know you're really helping a lot of people. Say it again.
The thing is, it's like a lot of people don't know about that scripture is it says that love your neighbor as you love yourself, but people don't know how to love themselves. So they try to love other people with a definition of love that doesn't work for them. So
I like that. That's very powerful. You're Love University people, I think. You understand, right?
Okay. Love it.
Now, in terms of the foster care, now I did a little research, and there's and also in the book you wrote, you have some good statistics. Apparently, there are about 500,000 kids in foster care, and there can be issues with foster care. There's psychological issues, problems, attention deficit, aggression. Some of them may come from the previous environment. Maybe it's sometimes genetic because of the drugs in the parent system sometimes. And of course, the other problem is that they have issues with high school and college. Only 56% graduate high school, only 3% graduate college, and they move around like 7 different schools. So I'm kind of curious, how did you guys join the 3% club? I mean, you guys are either graduating or graduated college. How do you guys do that? Why did you even want to go to college, given all your backgrounds?
Yeah, so I think for me, it was the first. For my family, I started to become like the first person to do a lot of things. The first person to travel out of the country, the
Yes.
first person to get married, and the first of the first was graduate or getting accepted into college and going to college. I am the second of five kids
Wow.
to graduate high school
Yes.
and the first to go to college. So
Right.
once I started that first, it just started pushing me to go further and further. And the reason why I was able to graduate college is because, again, the Cedar Scholars Program and our support system of campus coaches and a community of people, of mentors, campus coaches, an entire program, an amazing partner who was able to push me and carry me when I didn't want to. When I wanted to drop out and go back to Detroit and live with my mom, Alexis didn't let me. And when I was struggling in school, she bought me a planner, and I have so many mentors who would just contribute to me and continue to speak great things into my life, and campus coaches who would help me financially with budgeting in so many areas of my life. And I had that community of people who weren't going to let me fail. Yes. And whether you're in foster care or not, you need that. But it's even harder for foster care youth who already have the odds stacked against them, and they don't have that support system.
Exactly. Now, I used to work for a foster care agency, and their goal is reunification, which is fairly common. However, sometimes going back to the birth parent triggers abuse. Adoption apparently is a good solution for a certain number of kids. Now, foster care, they say, can be therapeutic as a short-term kind of alternative if you have sensitive, caring foster parents and authoritative discipline. If you guys know that authoritative means like discipline, but also love at the same time. So you're setting limits and structure. Now, it sounds like you had that, Alexis, with your last foster care family, and they adopted you at 26. So, you're kind of a very unique person in that way. So.
Well, I moved in with them during my junior year of high school. It was the summer between my junior and senior year. And I lived with them for 6 months. Then they moved, and I moved in with their parents. But then when I transferred schools, I wanted to be near them again. And so I just always kind of stayed in contact, and I always knew that I wanted them to adopt me. It was just when. And I wanted to wait till I was 26 so I wouldn't lose my health insurance. So that was the only reason why I waited. It would have happened a lot sooner if I didn't have that motive.
So Justin, are you their son or their son-in-law? How do you consider that, her parents?
I consider them in-laws.
Son-in-law.
So, yeah, like a son-in-law. So,
but almost like a son. I mean, some in-laws are very close to the in-laws, I guess.
Yeah, well, we're staying with my parents right now with COVID.
There you go.
So we're definitely getting closer.
I see. Now, you guys are doing a lot of fascinating work. You got the scholarship, I guess, finding program where you help people find scholarships, and then community empowerment and things like that. So tell us a little bit about those projects. What are you excited about in the future? What's going on right now in terms of your businesses and things?
Yeah, so with the Scholarship Expert, I started that in 2016, and then we relaunched it again in December, and we created an online course called the Scholarship Blueprint, and also wrote a book called the Scholarship Blueprint as well. And we really focus on helping students find and apply for scholarships. So we teach them what worked for us, because we graduated with over $340,000 in scholarships. And so we really just wanted to teach other students the techniques that we've learned.
Yes.
We actually just relaunched our new website. And I just spoke at a huge conference last week, which I did a workshop on helping families pay for college. So that's really exciting. And then the Rose Empowerment Group is his baby.
Yeah, so with the Rose Empowerment Group, that was actually something I was started during the pandemic. And it's been something that my pastor has been telling me to work on for years now and create. And it started where she called me at like 3 or 4 a.m. and told me like, hey, you are a Rose that grew from concrete, and I see that in you. And Rose Empowerment Group, Rose is the acronym for Rising Over Societal Expectations. And it was created because we wanted to close the information gap for Black and brown youth. And I've been doing like a lot of mentoring my peers and a lot of younger Black and brown youth throughout my college career. And we created this to kind of change the narrative and perspective on for Black people and Black communities, because what's set before us is the legacy of slavery and racism, but we wanted to set a new path for Black communities when it comes to individual growth and character development, working on Black communities and how we can impact the actual neighborhoods. within that is building healthy relationships with this book.
Yes.
Economic growth within Black communities,
Right.
and lastly, just working on creating an impact and a legacy that reverses systematic racism and creating local businesses, programs, and initiatives within Black communities that will last beyond people's lifetime.
Definitely. So redefining normal, I guess you're saying, is your theme, no? This thing about changing people's inner perceptions, for more of a success mindset, right? To really believe that you can help and also contribute and leave a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are
definitely.
doing great things because you're creating what I call light in the world, which is great for couples to do. Something beyond yourself that's going to last beyond yourself. Now, listening to you, Justin, I thought you were an introvert, but you sound like you're pretty talkative. Are you actually an extrovert, closet-wise, or is it only when you get certain ideas that you start talking?
I would say idea sparks, and it just gets the rolling. So.
Okay, something all right. You get the flow
Yeah,
going, right?
he can be talkative when it's something he's passionate
Exactly,
about. But generally, he can be quiet.
Okay, internal people, have that energy. Well, this has been wonderful. You guys are really amazing. You must be at least 30 years old, right, or so, to have all these things going for you.
26.
Yeah,
26?
She's 26. I'm 23.
Look at that. Okay, so you guys amazingly accomplished at a young age. So that's wonderful. So tell us more about how we can get a hold of you. Do you have a website? Are you doing speaking things? What are you guys up to that we can reach you?
Yeah, so we actually have our book on pre-order right now, Redefining Normal, and it's at re-definingnormal.com.
Okay.
And you can feel free to email us at info@re-definingnormal.com. And on our website, we have buttons everywhere that says book us if you would like to book us for an event or a panel or webinar, whatever it may be. We're available. And then the scholarship expert is the scholarshipexpert.com. Rose Empowerment Group is roseempowermentgroup.com.
Okay.
So we try to make it pretty easy for people to find us.
And you can follow us on social media for Redefining Normal is Redefining Normal Memoir on Facebook. And on Facebook, Rose Empowerment Group. For scholarship expert.
Yeah,
on Facebook.
So we try to make it easy for you to find us.
You got it all going, huh? That's awesome.
Yeah,
you're very happy.
but on our website, you can find everything.
Yeah,
you're very happy. I can see you're a very happy couple. You have very good connection here, yin and yang, kind of different energies. But you come from a background of the adversity, but now I call it from foster to fantastic. That's my term for the show today.
I like that.
Little hooks. I'm good at that stuff. So Dr. Alex Avila, Love University, if you want to comment on today's show or be a guest or have questions, you can reach us at loveuniversity.love. Call us at 310-226-8090. loveuniversitylove@gmail.com. So it's been wonderful to have you on the show. Love to have you back on again. And basically, I need a copy of the full book. Can I get a copy of the book?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then comes, all right, it's been a wonderful pleasure. We'll see you next time. Love University.
Perfect.
Thank you. Take care.
That was a wonderful interview with Justin and Alexis Black. Two wonderful young individuals who've done a lot. They've overcome that adversity, coming from a foster care, a lot of abuse and trauma, to being loving people that want to help each other and also the world. Again, Dr. Alex Avila, this is the kind of show that we want to bring to you where we inspire you, we motivate you to be the best you can be and to take the obstacles and challenges and turn them into positivity and to roses, as Justin was saying. So if you want to be part of Love University, you can like us on Facebook at Love University Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Love Letter U Podcast. Also subscribe to us on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Until next time, Dr. Alex Avila, put away your notebooks, your iPads, your iPhones, and we'll see you next week. Make sure you turn the day into love and happiness. Dr. Avila.